All right, how's it going? My name's Matt Barr. You listen to episode 122 of the Looking Sideways Action Sports podcast. It's the show where I look at the most interesting stories in action sports and other related endeavours. Thanks for tuning into this one. Hope you enjoy it. So I've got Chaz Smith, Charlie, to his friends on the show this week. I mean, I'm going to say Chaz is probably the most notorious surf journalist and writer on the planet right now, really, along with Derek Riley. He runs Beach Grip, which is a hugely successful surf platform that's achieved notoriety by essentially shamelessly riffing on a theme that runs through surfing like a stick of rock. It's that anti-authoritarian, increasingly libertarian stance, actually, epitomised by the deification of people like Mickey Dora. You know the deal. You know, if you follow any kind of surf or surf media, you know this trope. And the result is that Beach Grip is a modern anti-Val stronghold, really. You know, cheered on by a vociferous, and I'm going to say at times slightly homoerotic, cheerleading squad of below-the-line commentators who gleefully take aim at absolutely anything in their sights that they deem to be contrary to that vision of surfing that I've just outlined, whether that's the WSL, a perennial target, or more recently the COVID-19 surf ban situation, which is a particularly relevant point right now because, you know, that whole strain of protest, I think at the time that I'm recording this, you know, there was Huntington Beach had just had this huge protest of people. I mean, it's a peculiarly American response to this whole crisis, isn't it? You know, people conflating the stay at home, stay out of the water orders as like an attack on freedom. You know, that's across society at large, but in this case in particular is a further example of the wimpification of surfing, as Chaz Smith put it during our conversation. You get the point. They like to ruffle a few feathers, and whatever you think of it, they're definitely onto something. I mean, there's a case to be made that Beach Grit is the most successful media outlet of any board sport right now. A friend of mine in the industry, who I chatted to before this, sent me a message which said, Beach Grit has an insane amount of page views and unique visitors, shits over any of the board sports media. And because of their lack of need to make any money, not sure why that is, means they've had zero advertising constraints, can say what they want without pissing anyone off, and they're now in a position where they can make masses of money from YouTube and browser clicks, etc. So I'm setting it up. Beach Grit is this, you know, it's a monolith. It's a modern surf media monolith. And then there's Chaz himself, who in the process has come to personify a particular type of surf writing trope. There's that word again, which I think you're probably going to be pretty bored of by the end of this episode. You know the one, the hard drinking, tough talking alpha who's forever storming out of trade shows and picking literal and metaphorical fights with his peers and contemporaries, the fearless, iconoclastic slayer of sacred cows for whom no target is safe and who can leave no dunghill of controversy unpoked, who's never happier than when he's rolling his sleeves up and diving into the comment section and forcing that brand of surfing non-conformity that is essentially the quintessence of the Beach Grit brand, if you like. And yet, I've always been extremely intrigued by Chaz Smith. Firstly, because we've got mutual friends who speak absolutely glowingly of him. And, you know, kind of made it clear that they thought the whole thing was a bit of an act, really. Charlie, you know, they'd say, he'd charm the birds out the trees. And it was an impression confirmed when I briefly met him in California last year. And me and Tozer afterwards were like, God, he was nice. And it certainly didn't square with the image that I've just outlined. And also, by the way he approached this interview, which was really polite, completely stoked, massively helpful, and basically lovely. And then there's the act itself that I just described, because as well done as Chaz's version of it is, in its way, that trope, there's that word again, is as much of a cliche as the very things that Chaz has spent his career railing against, as the reams of cut price Hunter S. Thompson rip-offs that litter action sports media demonstrate. I mean, you can get away with it more in our little world, which tends to be a little less culturally aware than mainstream culture, but it's pretty played out, that thing. And I've long suspected that nobody was more aware of that than Charlie Smith himself, really. And, all of which beg the question, where does Chas Smith end and Charlie Smith begin? Fertile territory for an episode of the Looking Sideways podcast then. And reason enough to get him on the podcast and try and get him to talk about all that, which is exactly what I did. I'll be back at the end with the usual housekeeping corner. In the meantime, here's me and Charlie Smith, I'm going to say. Trash Pros. Enjoy. And how's life treating you over there now?
It's okay. The weather just got good again, and the beaches here in San Diego are kind of open, but it's all just so absolutely nonsensical in terms of, like, they just opened them up. I think it was on Monday, but we have a long stretch of beach here. It's North County, San Diego, and a lot of different access points. But what they decided to do is open the beaches, but only open one access point. So they made a nice choke, like a mass humanity choke point.
They made a bottleneck for you.
Yeah, just for fun. They closed off all the other stairs, all the other ways down to the beach. They allowed people to really bottleneck together and then spread out on the beach, I suppose.
Right. Because I spoke to somebody in LA the other day, and they were saying that it was quite hard to kind of work out what was going on, actually. He was like, well, they've opened the beaches, but then they're going to close them again. But it turned out it was just Orange County that got shut, right?
It is. Orange County felt the jackboot on the neck. It was, right. They were naughty. And so they got Governor Gavin Newsom's wrath. So, yeah.
And how's it going down? Because it does seem to be kind of degenerated into like a culture war at this point over there.
It is, which is so bizarre to me that this is has become a political issue, I suppose, where I think I get thrown into the Trump supporting camp just because I'm skeptical about the response, which I couldn't care less about Trump. And it's bizarre to me that, it feels like if you're, a Trump supporter or on that side of the aisle, then you are skeptical about the lockdowns and all that. And if you're a liberal, then you have to be supportive of like massive panic and lock indoors and wear a face mask even when you're driving by yourself in your car.
So did that evolve as it went on? Did it start out that people were kind of like broadly accepting of it, but then as it's gone on longer and perhaps the numbers haven't been as anticipated and all that stuff, it has basically devolved onto those sort of two lines?
That's what it feels. And then, it feels like there's numbers for both camps, like that, there's numbers that suggest it's not nearly as serious as it was initially made out to be. And then there's numbers, of course, on the other side that it's the deadliest thing since the Black Plague. And so I think people have entrenched into their camps over here and then just find available data that supports their beliefs, which I guess is exactly the way it was before, which is frustrating because this thing I felt could have, I don't know,
been non-partisan.
Precisely, and or made kind of different alliances, which I think it is at a small level. Like I know people who, are crazy, dyed-in-the-wool liberals who are skeptical and so are finding common cause with people that they, haven't listened to in years. So, but I would like to see that happening in a bigger way because I feel that, I don't know, the whole thing is just so weird, right? I mean, both the response to it, what it is, like, it feels, or my perception, I guess, is that the way people feel about it is based on their own personal belief systems as opposed to, what it really is.
Yeah, I mean, so obviously over here we had Brexit, for like 4 years. I think it's coming up for 4 years. And that was like, I use the phrase culture war advisedly. That was like basically, as you just described, entrenched positions that you could, find any amount of info, data to back up your position and create and similar to what's going on over there with Trump, obviously, like you said. And I kind of was a bit like you. Initially, I thought, wow, it's nice to have something that hasn't devolved instantly along those lines, because initially, everybody was just trying to get their head around it, but it is incredible how quickly that's happened. And
completely.
And even more, it's almost like in this country, it's another layer to that old debate, basically, because it's kind of perfectly. It's interesting that you say it's almost like crossing a few lines. You said you've got liberal friends that question it, and it sounds like your position is somewhere in the middle of that. But over here, it's definitely just essentially devolved back into those two camps, really. People either, and I think you're right. I think it's like left and right, isn't it? Left people basically like, well, no, we need to kind of hold this down, see where it leads, and people on the right kind of either making a libertarian argument or, interesting enough over here, being massively pro-government.
Yeah.
The right is quite split, and it's tricky for the right, isn't it? Because either you back it and say they're doing a good job, or you kind of go even further down the other way and you say this is all bullshit and it's unnecessary, which seems a bit, more over there. It seems that's the extreme version of what's going on, right?
Yeah, completely.
So where do you sit on all that?
I mean, I just think that not everywhere is New York City, and I think the leaders over here are pretty absurd in how they're treating it. Like, again, opening the beaches, but making a choke point where people have to get together in very close quarters in order to pass each other. I think in California, most of the United States, there's a lot of outside space, a lot of fresh air. And they just should have, to have banned surfing just seems absolutely ridiculous to me. Surfing is, I think, the ultimate self-isolating sport or social distancing sport. And if anybody paddles, imagine if you're out in the lineup and somebody paddles within 6 feet of you, right? That doesn't happen even around here, at least, even, on the best days where, of course, there's places that are, like tightly packed points and trestles, I guess, can get pretty packed in there. But you're never sitting within 6 feet of another surfer. So I don't know. I just think that the way that the officials have dealt with it, it seems like a lot more panic based and fear based than it is based on actually what's happening. And again, not to sound callous, but it is a disease that targets, basically the immunocompromised, those with obese, underlying conditions, all that kind of stuff. And so to just toss the entire economy, the world's economy, into the dumpster fire for this, I don't know that history will look upon this as one of human leadership's finest moments.
So do you think anyone over there is handling it well? Because obviously there's a few, you mentioned Newsom, Cuomo in New York, obviously Trump. Do you kind of feel like that, like the whole response has been pretty flawed?
It feels that way to me. I think that, and even Orange County's response, right, which I love them and God bless them, but like getting their orders and then going out and protesting and all that kind of stuff, which, I think that's what they should be doing because of those orders came through and singled them out. But it just seems it seems like those who are anti now have been pushed so far, or those who are anti-lockdown and all that have been pushed so far that now they're just like, well, screw this whole thing, and just going out and being rude about it. And I don't think that's necessarily a good look, but also better than just cowering indoors. This cowering indoors business is just, I don't get.
And when you say cowering, as in, because it's kind of linked to this, we don't really do this over here kind of standpoint as well, isn't it? It feels like when you look at it from the outside, it's, you're saying like cowering indoors. Do you feel like, what do you mean when you say that?
I don't know how you're supposed to hide from a virus, right? Like,
you think it's inevitable that you got to interact with it at some point?
It's, for sure. Like, you're going to have to deal with it at some point. And again, of course, anybody pulls any of their anecdotal stories from everywhere, but Sweden seems like a pretty good case of, let's protect the vulnerable the best we can while also letting this thing kind of run through the healthy populations, just because it's, human beings are not going to be able to stay 6 feet apart from each other for the rest of our lives.
No,
of course,
fair.
And of course they're waiting for the vaccine and whatever, but if this thing is like the flu and, so what, the vaccine will work 20% of the time. But maybe that's all people need is a little bit of mental comfort that there is some kind of protection. Yeah.
Whether it's treatment, prophylactic treatment, kind of like malaria pills, or like effective medical treatment, but like you say, it's going to change soon, right? It feels like over here it's going to change within the next few weeks. They're going to have to lift it really because... are people starting to bust out of the seams over there like here? Or is the weather not conducive to
everybody wanting to be outside.
Well, we had like 6 weeks of good weather actually that perfectly coincided with the first like period of lockdown. Like I say, it's shit today. Yeah, I think everyone's chaffing. Everyone's a bit over it. And a couple of things that you said as well, like about how mixed messages from the authorities, they've definitely been really guilty of that over here. You know, like, so one thing they did was they said you shouldn't go to the pubs, but they didn't shut the pubs.
Yeah.
So everyone's like, well, what do we do? And then everyone realised that we're going to shut the pubs. So obviously everyone went to the pub.
Yeah.
So I think things like that, what it shows you is they just haven't got a fucking clue.
No.
Like, they haven't got a clue. And they're making it up as they go along, clearly. And you can see that by everybody's different response as well.
That's the thing. I think this is, and I know people who believe in like real broad level conspiracies, like top down conspiracies, like, I mean, I think a lot of things get thrown into the conspiracy thinking camp, which aren't in fact conspiracies at all. Just, I don't know, the alternative discourse, but a real like programmatic top down, the world leaders kind of are conspiring to do X, Y, and Z. I think this coronavirus just laid any thinking about that absolutely bare, because it's been, I mean, like you said, so willy-nilly, so half measure here and a weird overreaction here where none of it makes any sense. None of it's not good for the economy. It's not good for the disease itself. It's not good for anything. It seems like, just world leaders just have lost their minds.
Yeah, I mean, it's that maxim about conspiracies, isn't it? Don't put down to conspiracy what could be easily explained by ineptitude,
Yeah.
And I think this is a pretty much a case in point. But, obviously the surf debate has been fertile ground for you guys at Beach Grit, the last few weeks. There must have been a part of you that's kind of been relishing that. The fact that there is just such a brilliant debate to be had right now.
Completely. And initially, especially, like when I think the visuals of people at the beach and people surfing, that look like they're sitting close to each other, in terms of the way the mainstream media picked it up, was they were nice visuals. And so the fact that surfing somehow became a flashpoint of the larger debate for the first couple weeks, I was over the moon about it. Now I'm so tired. Like there's nothing to say anymore, right? It's like, okay, we can write about the next protest and the next protest and the next beach closure and the next arrest and the next whatever. And it just seems tired because there's no, it's just I feel the story's just dead at this point. I would just like it to get back to normal.
Yeah. I mean, I would
happily jump off.
Completely agree. There's only so many times
the click bandwagon.
Yeah, there's only so many times you can have that same debate, isn't there? Essentially.
Yeah.
Like the same argument. Like, were people not expected to surf? They basically said you shouldn't surf over there. Was that how it started out? It
started out, I think there was pictures from who knows where. I think they might have even been pictures from New York or something where surfers were sitting close together. And so down here, the San Diego County authorities just thought, okay, that's it. And who knows why? I mean, I have no idea what they were thinking, but so ban surfing all of San Diego County, which meant no surfing at all. Like it was a crime. So to go to the beach and try to surf, you'd get either arrested or ticketed. To be even in a park stalling for a minute was a crime. Orange County left a bunch of their beaches open, but it was all just this weird patchwork of regulations. Like I think the state beaches were closed, but city beaches in certain cities were open. So it was kind of this, a random patchwork. So if you wanted to surf, you'd go up to Orange County, which is obviously bad for Orange County to have San Diegans and people from Los Angeles coming down. So but it was a crime down here.
Did you find when that kicked off? I'm interested in how it works at Beach Grit. Because it's you and Derek basically, right? So when you got a story like that, are you both a bit like, right, we can? Is there an element of like editorial? Like, let's see how far we can push this. Like,
I mean, always. I think the Beach Grit way is just to milk a story till it's absolutely dry. So any angle we can hit it from, there's no such thing as too many stories on the most banal subject ever. So initially, it was just like all cylinders firing. And I think we rarely discuss that kind of stuff. It's mostly just I wake up in the morning here and start hammering and then go to sleep, and he wakes up in Australia and starts hammering, and oftentimes it's on the same subject.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you are Beach Grit, right? So it's not like you need to have the editorial meeting or whatever to like discuss it. I'm sure it's just what you guys do. But yeah, I guess it was almost like perfect story for you guys this at one point, wasn't it? Because it was like it ticked so many different boxes, you know, authority, surf culture, like how people react to these conformities, which is a big theme of what you personally do, isn't it?
Completely. Surf as rebellion versus surf as, you know, as sort of a healthy hobby or healthy pastime. Like it did tick so many boxes, and I guess should still maybe, but again, the story I feel has just gotten so stale. There's no, I mean, speak of entrenchment. I think those camps are so entrenched already. And a funny thing, I guess though, that I've come out of this, I always thought that, I don't know about humans in general, but we'll say surfers. I thought surfers were generally, and by surfers, I mean, you know, not Vals, but people who really identify as surfers and have surfed, you know, I don't know, whatever. Whatever the definition of a real surfer is, that real surfers were by and large rebellious. This has taught me that absolutely not, that it's a tiny percentage that feel any kind of rebellion. And the vast majority are just, you know, going along and getting along and you there's no punk left at all, which I always thought there was. So it was my bad.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because I listened to your podcast you did with Tyler. Did you listen to the bit you did with Jamie beforehand?
I need to listen to the Jamie one. I love Jamie so much. Yeah.
Cause and I've chatted to Jamie a bit about this as well. Like because he interviewed Matt Warshaw for Huck magazine. I don't know if you read that story that Jamie did, and he talks about this, Jamie, in his thing with Tyler, and he basically says that because Warshaw addresses this by the sounds of it, and he kind of says, yeah, that's fine to a point, but this is almost beyond that. You know, there's a point when you've almost got to park that because this is too serious. I'm paraphrasing, obviously.
Yeah.
You know, but it just reminded me that when you just said that, because it kind of speaks to exactly what you're saying, isn't it? You know, and that has been a theme. Like when you talked to Tyler, obviously you guys had a, you know, pretty decent debate about the herd immunity thing and all that stuff, and he was kind of the same as well, wasn't he? He was a bit like, you know what, we're pretty privileged. We should be able to park this.
For sure. And I think if you park your rebellion, then, or if you park the little rebellious thing you have in your heart, then you're not a rebel anymore, right? And of course, I guess to Matt and Tyler's point, both obviously come from this whole COVID debate, I suppose, from a position that it's super serious. And both of them, I mean, Matt in Seattle and Tyler in New York, you know, saw a different side of it than I ever saw. But I was sneaking and running through Paris and Germany and all that.
I was going to say, you were in Europe like 6 weeks ago. So and when you were here, that was like that was when everyone was panicking, basically.
Yeah, it was like mass panic. But it wasn't even in, you know, running around Berlin, restaurants were still open. You know, me and young daughter were the only people eating out, but everything was still open. And it didn't seem like it gripped Europe definitely with the same ferocity, but not with the stupidity that it hit over here, I think. Or that's the way it felt.
Right. Well, perhaps general theme, eh? I think when you were over here, like it was the week after when everyone was like, okay, fuck, because it was like, you know, fiddling while Rome burns a little bit that week, because I was in the French Alps that week that you were traveling, and yeah, everyone was just it was an air of unreality to it all still, wasn't there? You know, it was a bit like,
it was completely surreal. It just felt, I mean, fun, I guess, and you know, it probably doesn't age well, but it probably will age well. The people who were having fun during this thing, I would imagine, will be the people who come out when, you know, again, when history looks back, would say, well, look at those people. There was at least some people who weren't just hamstrung by fear.
So when you were saying the rebellion thing, like why is that important?
It was always a part of surfing for me, was surfing as rebellion to, you know, both my upbringing, not my upbringing, I guess, but where I lived, right? Like I grew up in a real redneck town, like a, you know, I don't know. Does everybody know what redneck means? Everybody knows what redneck means. Yeah. Everyone's seen Easy Rider. Everyone. Yeah, good, perfect. Yeah, but a full redneck town. So surfing to me was rebellion against that culture, right? And then coming down to California, where it's not rebellion down here necessarily, but I always felt it was rebellion against a normal life, kind of. Like, you were a surfer, and that's what you were. You weren't a, economist or a banker or whatever. The surfers were actively rebelling.
There was me. It still had meaning then, didn't it?
Yeah.
Like, it's like it comes up a lot in the chats I have on this show, like, especially because what are you, like, late 30s, early 40s?
Yeah, 40s.
Yeah,
not even early anymore.
40s. Yeah, and like back because I'm 44, and like it was legit counterculture, wasn't it? However you got into it, you got into it. I got into it when I was like skateboarding when I was like 13. So what's that? 89. And I'm from England, so it genuinely was a counterculture over here to do that. But obviously, and this is the most unoriginal observation ever, but like in the intervening 30 years, it just isn't like that anymore, is it? So do you see your role as, I guess the question is, and I think from your output it's pretty clear what the answer is, but is your role to protect that?
I've always thought, yes, like, not to protect it necessarily, but just to remind people and that this is what it is. This is what we are. We're rude, and we are the counterculture, right? We're out of step with culture. We have different belief systems, different things drive us, more or less, and those things always need to be cherished. And I always, again, before coronavirus, I thought that, there wasn't the majority of people who surf didn't feel that way, but there was a good, 30-40% of surfers had that, little rebel yell in their hearts still, even if it was buried a bit. But this coronavirus, the way surfers have tattled on each other and outed each other and went crying to the authorities and all this stuff makes me think, oh man, the rebel faction in surfing is minuscule. It is tiny.
So, and how does that make you feel?
It made me feel sad. It makes me feel like, oh, I've been operating thinking that my team is small, but it is robust. And now I realize, no, my team is robust, but there's like 8 people.
Wow. I mean, you've mastered that community though, surely that's what you've done, you guys.
I mean, for sure, and hopefully we continue to be a space where that part of surfing lives. Even if it's just simply a questioning of authority, like not just Derek wrote a story the other day about surfers putting our own necks under the jackboot, which it feels like that's what we've done. So many surfers have done through this whole coronavirus thing. And if Beach Grit can just be a place where the counter narrative lives to just a like self imprisonment, then yeah, I would like for that to keep going.
So the challenge is the point though, just to like, poke away at these changes, because it is real, isn't it? Like the fact that an Olympics comes along or outside people come along, you've got a few easy targets that you return to time and again, with what you guys do. But the point is serious, isn't it? The point is like it is worth protecting, presumably.
I mean, I think so. I think without that, if surfing just becomes a mirror image of what the World Surf League, pushes out, then surfing has lost everything, I think. I mean, I guess just my opinion with surfing has always been, yes, I love the act of sliding on waves, but the act of sliding on waves is only part of what makes a surfer a surfer. Like, being a surfer, I feel, is it's an attitude and it's a way of looking at the world as much as it is the physical thing we do.
Can you protect that in the face of the just exponential growth, though, that is inevitable?
No, but I suppose I doubt the exponential growth theory. I think that
really
surfing is difficult enough to sort of self-regulate a bit. So as long as there can be, and again, maybe it's time to build a bigger rebellion somehow, but as long as there can be a little rebellious faction, enough people will be falling off, unable to surf or unable to keep interest because it's a pain in the ass to do, more or less. That, yeah, I mean, I guess I just don't see surfing growing huge. And I know that people will look at surf schools and I don't know, a bunch of people out on softboards and all that kind of stuff. But how many of those people will stick with it, right? I mean, I think it ebbs and flows and has ebbed and flowed through history. But I don't think our Val boom is going to hold.
Really? That's interesting.
I don't think, do you?
It feels like over here, that feels like the growth area to me over here. I mean, I don't, I grew up in the shadow of California. I don't know California beyond like a surface level, probably cliche of what Californian surf culture stands for, and, sideways culture generally. So I can't speak to that because I just wouldn't be qualified. But I feel like, and obviously it's different in Europe. You've spent enough time in Europe to know that. But over here, it feels real. That it does feel like that is growing, that part of it.
It feels like, from my perspective from here, it feels like England, the UK, really discovered or really didn't discover, but surf culture now is a thing there where it wasn't maybe before. There were surfers, but there wasn't a surf culture. Now it feels like the surf culture is there. And so I wonder if, but I wonder if there was room for growth, right? If there was room to fill out a bit more and then just watch the person who, stood up and went straight in the whitewash and at Cornwall. And
have you been to England? Have you surfed England?
I have, yeah.
Or the UK? Where'd you go?
I went to Cornwall.
Oh, you
How do you
did?
pronounce it? Cornwall?
Cornwall, yeah. What, Newquay?
Yeah, Newquay. That's
wow.
right. Yeah.
When was that?
It was in 1996 or 7.
Okay, what? And you were just traveling around doing?
Yeah, I studied at Oxford for a semester, so it was.
Oh, you did?
During that time, yeah.
Oh, okay. And what was that?
College.
Was that like just an exchange thing?
It was kind of, yeah. They had a program there called the Middle Eastern and Renaissance Studies program at Keble College. So I had to drop out of college and then go study there and then drop back into college.
Right. Okay. See, yeah. But you feel like it's over here, we've finally got a bit of a foothold. You can see that.
It feels like, from my perspective outside, that now English surfing is a thing, where before it just seemed like there were people in England who surfed.
Yeah.
But now it feels like there's a distinct English surf culture.
And so I'm really interested in that. So what does that look like to you? Like,
it looks like a mix to me of kind of a more culturally sophisticated East Coast surfer, like not Florida, but like
like the northeast.
Yeah,
New
Maine
York.
and
New York's a good example, right? Yeah,
precisely. So it seems like a more culturally sophisticated version of that, and by culturally sophisticated, I mean like just in the English way, in the Downton Abbey kind of way.
yeah. I think that's a really good comparison, actually, because I think they do. Obviously there's a few obvious points of comparison, but yeah, I think that's fair.
Like, definitely. I think the surf that's not notably good, but can get good sometimes.
Yeah.
And,
pretty cold.
Cold. A band of people who really are on it. Like, I'm sure you can totally score if you know exactly wind, tide, where to be, and have, boats or whatever to get there. But then, most people just having fun surfing.
Yeah. I think I chatted to a friend of mine who's like a British longboarder who's, traveled a lot, and I guess he'd be considered to be like a professional British surfer. I think we were saying the same thing, that we're still kind of out on a little limb somewhere, but it is developing for sure.
Does that feel good to you, or do you worry that we're just gonna have because there's absolutely no way that enough people are gonna crowd Newey.
It's the same argument over as everywhere in the world.
It's just too many.
Everyone thinks it's too crowded. Everyone's arguing about wave pools because obviously we've had a few of them.
Yeah.
Everybody. Where I surf in Brighton, which is like an hour south London, which is probably the shittiest surf in the UK. Really, good. Like, there's a scene. There's people. There's people surfing today. Even here, everyone's arguing about it's too busy, quality of waves. Like, it's just universal, isn't it? Human nature.
But to me, those are some of the fun parts about surfing. The fact that surfing as a thing, hopefully, and again, hopefully with the wimpification of it all, That people will still go out and bark in the lineup and stuff, right? Even the guy who just started surfing, hopefully he gets out there and figures it out enough to go bark somebody off his wave.
So when you talk about, that's a great phrase, the wimpification of it, or however you're going to say it, the commodification of it, like, and I guess I'm thinking of people like Elo, who is obviously like a perennial target for you guys. Is it that you object to, the fact that you've kind of got these people, I'm going to use the word stakeholders because it's relevant in this time, who want to like fuel the growth, because it's a big topic in any of these sports, isn't it? There's always people that are like, it's going to grow, we might as well control it, but then they fuel the growth, which takes it further away from what it originally was. Is that why? Yeah, well, I guess the question is, what's your stance on that particular phenomenon?
It's not the growth. Let surfing grow to be the biggest thing in the world, but package it in a package that's real. Like, sell it what it really is, I feel, and sell the bad bits too, right? Sell the drugs and the sordid history and the nasty characters and all of it, right? Like, surfing is not I don't think a pristine, it's clean scrubbed nice sport. It has warts, and it's what makes it good is also why it's bad. And I feel that World Surf League, Eric Logan in particular, coming from the background he came from, really took a scrub brush to it and is presenting this vision of surfing that's just, it's not reflective of surfing, I think. So if you're going to sell it for what it is. Don't sell this fake, Disney version of what you want it to be or what you think will sell.
What is driving that, though? What is driving that vision?
I think it's just sheer panic that they have money invested in it and they need to sell something to a broader audience, to a non-surf audience. And this is what they think will work, right? They think that, and maybe, I don't get to see their data. I'd be real dubious if it is working. The content they put out, from Transform to whatever else. But I think they feel that if they have this super neutral / crazy positive / sunny boys and happy girls doing beautiful things, that's what will catch with mainstream audiences.
Yeah, but to even peel it back another layer, though, why does it need to catch the mainstream audience?
I mean, I think they need to make money. They need to make up their investment.
They've got a beast that needs feeding,
for sure. Yeah. And probably at this point, millions upon millions upon millions of dollars fed down the mouth of this thing. And I'm sure Dirk Ziff can write it all off, but I don't know how long you can continue to write off a losing investment.
I thought that was really telling on your conversation with Pat and Eric on your podcast the other day. I can't remember who said it. One of them said, like, the problem we've got is describing what our thing is, and you were like, no, we don't. That's not a problem. And you just straight away were like, it's bang, it's that. And I did. And there's always this argument like we need to make it like tennis. It needs to be. And I am always a little bit baffled by that, because it's like, at some point, surely you have to say, like, this is what our thing is.
I mean, that's the thing too. Is I think I got in a debate with somebody else about it too, that surfing is hard to describe, or it's hard to understand who's better or worse, because, the judging is so subjective and you have to know this move and that move and whatever. But I think that's only true when people are surfing shitty waves. I think that you could put, two world-class surfers, Gabriel Medina and Idolo, out at world-class, at a good day at cloud break. And I think the general public could pick the better surfer 8 times out of 10. That's what surfing's got going for it. I mean, like, above and beyond skateboarding and snowboarding, if you take those as examples, like, a much overused word, gladiatorial, everyone in the fucking world can watch people surfing a wave, preferably a big wave, and understand that as a concept, and like you say, and intuitively go, that guy's better at that. Whereas like skateboarding, I mean, I would buy that in skateboarding. It is a problem in skateboarding, like, because basically, and snowboarding, you end up just beating people around the head with like, no, that was really hard.
You need to appreciate how hard that was. But you don't need that in surfing.
No, not at all. And that's the. I mean, I've been to. My wife represents skateboarders, so I went to a solid 5 years worth of street leagues, and I grew up surfing in action sports. Skateboarded horribly, but skateboarded. I could not understand the first thing over 5 years. I could not understand, like, every single time a score went on the board, it would be an absolute mystery to me how that score was what it was, or why that surfer was, or skateboarder was better than the other one. But which is exactly that. Oh, he did it switch. Well, okay, great, but it wasn't. I didn't understand that. Surfing. I mean, a guy gets a long barrel. I mean, yeah. So maybe it's only easy to understand if it's barrels, but I don't think so. I think surfing is not that hard to understand. Only hard to understand in knee high slop when you have guys 10 to the beaching. Then maybe okay, well, which turn is better than which? I don't even understand that.
So what were your? I mean, I'm sure I can guess. Like the latest announcement from them. What did you think of that?
I think personally, I think it's good, right? I think they're on a good path in order to, I don't know, having the Challenger Series as a separate thing in the same calendar, and then the WSL or the Championship Tour. I think that I like that from a fan's perspective. I think they really need to cut down on the draw. I mean, they need to be able to finish these events in a one swell window, and that's it. So, talking to Elo and Pat, I was like, who the hell cares what Peterson Crisanto thinks, right? Like,
made me laugh.
Peterson Crisanto out. But like, why are you giving him even a say? Like, you got to tell him, Pat, hey, Peterson Crisanto, unfortunately, nobody cares about you. You can pack your bags and go down to the Challenger Series and make people care about you if you want. Really. Either become a flashy personality or really start ripping. But the guys who sit kind of in the low 20s and or high 20s and low 30s, nobody needs to be there, right? I mean, there's 16, 18 max interesting surfers in the world that anybody wants to watch.
Yeah, I think you named them off the top of your head, didn't you, in that conversation, basically?
Yeah. And that was it, and that's it. And otherwise, sure, if you need a star, which of course you would, like where's the next generation come from, then let guys go there and let them work on captivating us, as opposed to just throwing them in. Okay, these guys are all interesting too, when they're very clearly not.
Yeah. Well, and again, it's like they try to tick too many boxes, aren't they? At points, it can seem like we've got to fit all this in. We've got to try and do all this.
Which is, I mean. For the diehard fan at work, I think when you have 8 hours of a day to fill at a desk, and you got a surf contest coming on that is going to last all of those 8 hours, that's fun. But besides that, I mean, the format is ridiculous as it is now.
Yeah, I would agree. I personally, not that it really matters, just don't really find it that watchable a lot of the time. Really,
no.
And I'm somebody that should be watching it really, but I just find it too. I don't know. I find it a bit cack-handed the way they do it.
It's fun to have it on, I think, as background, and there's a couple heats a year that are fun to actually sit and watch every minute of it. But yeah, I mean, we should be the diehards, and
glued to it.
If I miss an entire event, I mean, this is my job. I'm like, oh, okay, sweet. I missed Rio. Oops.
Did they ever try and bring you in?
Never. No. They I did with Paul Evans. Do you know Paul Evans?
Yeah, I know Paul, yeah.
Yeah. Paul Evans and I, a handful of years ago now, it was like a 1-star Swatch girls event in France.
Wow.
And I was somehow...
You and Paul on that.
Yeah, I was somehow allowed to be in the booth, and that was it for me. I think Paul got in big trouble for my behavior, and then I would have never been asked back.
Right.
I think they're mad. I think Elo likes to push out like we'll invite you in for this or that or the other thing, but never. I hear from reports from other people that the World Surf League reaches out to that they specify Beach Grit and Chaz Smith is not invited to partake in any of this stuff.
I mean, he's just consummate pro, isn't he? Like on the PR side, you can tell. He's just a very smooth operator, and it looks like he kind of brings it in when he wants to and dabbles with it.
He's really hard to pin down too. It's just a bunch of air, and so you just can't pin him to the wall.
Yeah, because he'll engage every now and again, won't he? He'll come on the shows and he'll do that, but yeah, it never. He always feels like he's got the barrier up. There's not much beyond that really.
Yeah.
So you mentioned, is it Oregon you're from? Is that right?
Oregon. Yep.
Right. So yeah, how did you get into this then? You mentioned that you grew up with probably a similar story, but how did Oregon lead to Beach Grit?
Grew up on the Oregon coast, but my cousins lived down here in North County, San Diego, so we would come visit them every summer. And I remember must have been, I don't know, 8 years old when we came down, and they had been into surfing or boogie boarding, I guess, forever, and it just grabbed me. And I loved California so much and did not like Oregon so much. So going back home, I just wanted to recreate. I thought, okay, sure, it's freezing and it's rainy and it's fairly miserable, but I have an ocean and they have an ocean. So just trying to recreate what California felt like up there is how I got into it.
And how about the journalism and the writing? Was that also something that you grew up with an interest in?
No, I mean, I sort of fell in love with reading, I guess at Oxford. I was supposed to be, I can't even remember what I was supposed to be reading, whatever medieval or Renaissance literature, but for some reason just
So that's what you did? You did a medieval and Renaissance literature?
At Oxford, yeah, but wow. That wasn't my field. But, for some reason I picked up Camus, though. And that was the first sort of book that just grabbed me. So I just voraciously read from then, until probably now. But I never thought about writing. It was, I think I thought about the idea of writers and how, epic writers were, like Camus with his dangly cigarette and the collar flipped up and the French rain, or, the way Hemingway looked and what they wrote, but also who they were as people. So I probably fell in love with the idea of writers. And then, when Buddy and I first first surfed in Yemen, he wrote a story for Surfer, and we also had the Australia Surfing Life wanted a story, so I just wrote that one. That was the first thing I'd ever written, and it was so awful. I thought I will never write again. Well, I remember getting it in the mail, the issue, and reading it and just thinking, this is like, the idea in my head, what I sounded like, and then reading it on a page was just like, ugh. So I think I didn't write again for, I don't know, probably a year. And then we went to Lebanon for a Vice magazine thing. And yeah, I wrote that one, and that one somehow accidentally came out funny. And so then I've been writing ever since then. Really?
So you never had, it wasn't something that you grew up really thinking was an option for you?
No, never.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. That's quite interesting. So, like you said that you did the Yemen story. What was that, a confidence thing? Like you just didn't think it was good enough, so you didn't pursue it?
Yeah. I mean, I thought, okay, I can be a writer. I like writers. Writers are cool. I could be a writer. I want to be a writer. And then read it again, and it was probably the first. I mean, I'd written school stuff and whatnot, but that was the first published piece I'd ever had, and it was just so awful. It was so terrible. Yeah, so I just thought it was so bad. It was bad enough for me to think, oh, I'm very clearly not a writer. So There we go.
So what were you doing on the trip? Obviously surfing, but was that a trip you organised, or how'd that come about?
Yeah. We it was right after 9/11, and I remember learning or hearing that Osama bin Laden, obviously Osama bin Laden, once he emerged as kind of the mastermind behind this, and they kept mentioning Yemen. That's where his family was from, Yemen. And I never really thought about Yemen before. My dad was always real interested in Yemen for some reason when I was a kid, I guess. So I take that back. Every National Geographic that would come from Yemen or had Yemen as a feature, we'd always pore over those ones. So maybe from that, like the fact that Osama bin Laden's family was from Yemen and all this, and then my buddy was getting his PhD in Islamic studies at UCLA, so my best friend. So I went over to his house and remember just looking at the map of Yemen and thinking, there's got to be surf here, right? Like, I mean, it's Indian Ocean. Like, I thought the Horn of Africa, of course, is going to shadow a bunch of it. But after that, they've got to get swell, and there's monsoons and all that. So, but nobody had ever surfed mainland Yemen. So, yeah, we just thought, okay, this is perfect. It's after 9/11. It's, hot. There's all kinds of Al-Qaeda business going on there, and nobody's ever surfed it. So it seemed like the perfect combination.
And it was a story that you were going to do, or just
yeah. So, I mean, we just wanted to do the trip, but then I thought, okay, how are we going to pay for this thing? So we pitched it to Surfer. And then, so Surfer, back in the days when magazines would give you money up front. So Surfer gave us money up front for it. And then OP, the now defunct surf brand, threw us money. And then, remember, we cobbled together enough, none of us were even good at surfing, but cobbled together enough surf money to go do it.
How was it?
I mean, it was epic. It was so amazing. And, by the time we had gotten all the way to the Omani border, I mean, yeah, like it was I guess it seems hackneyed now, but the, Yemenis coming up and touching our hair and, looking at our eyes and stuff. We were the first white people they'd ever seen. Like, we went deep and, yeah, to places. I mean, Yemen is just such an outstanding country. And, I mean, basically started a love affair with the place. I've been back, I don't know, me and same friend drove the whole thing on motorcycles and then went back later and we circumnavigated again. So I have a book coming out in July, which is basically love affair with Yemen.
Oh, really? Yeah, I was going to ask you what your next project was, because
that's it.
Right. And that's just those trips.
It's those trips with one to Lebanon mixed in the middle.
So I went snowboarding in Lebanon. Where did you go? Obviously Beirut.
Yeah, I mean, I've been to Lebanon so many times everywhere. I've been to snowboarding too up there, and
I fucking loved it over there.
How good is it?
It's so good, and everyone's always like, "What?" But I thought it was amazing. Love to go back.
It's a fantastic country. Yeah, I mean, and so diverse from the north to the south to the Bekaa Valley. Lebanon is a phenomenal country.
So, I mean, it wasn't that usual at that time for you. There weren't many people doing trips to like Lebanon, Yemen, in the surf media. So was that something what was it about that? Was you just attracted to the weird travel? Is it that simple?
I think it was attracted to the danger initially of, we did Somalia in there, and it was comboing up, and I don't know why, but it was comboing surfing, which we were going to be doing anyway, kind of, traveling with either geopolitical intrigue or, just straight up danger or just going places. I mean, I wasn't good enough to go get a surf money to go surf Indonesia, but we can go surf Yemen.
Yeah, and so obviously a bit more interesting as well. And
yeah, I mean, and just thinking of the places in this world that are there's still places, more or less unsurfed. Like the fact that you can still go have if you want to, a sort of endless summer surf adventure is pretty inspiring, I think.
So from that, you started doing different trips, different stories. You mentioned Vice, and that's how it developed.
So yeah,
you got a career out of it.
Derek Riley was at Stab, had just started Stab at that time, and he read that the Vice piece, and then somehow got a hold of my contact information, emailed me, and then that was it. So it was just, I started writing for Stab, and then just off it went.
And did you kind of identify this area that we've been talking about, this sort of, iconoclastic, sort of like finding these rough edges? Did that develop, or was that something that you kind of, from the beginning, thought you would explore?
I think being such an outsider, like being an Oregonian and having an idea of surf, but not really experiencing surf culture, it was just whatever. It was the way I thought it was in my head, right? And then watching people get angry about that, I just wanted to push that more and more and more. So, just making people angry, probably way too much for the sake of making people angry at different times, but just causing anything to cause a conversation, anything to make people react in a way, just to cause any kind of conversation. That's what intrigued me.
That's okay. So it intrigued you because of the reaction, or because journalistically it's a way of getting good copy.
I think mostly that. I mean, and also if you can get somebody so mad that they just go and flame in a comment or anything like that, then now it's not so fun, I think, or that's just become like trolling and all that has become a real thing, right? But, or people just going on screeds on Facebook. I think people are more or less tired of that. But when I was first started in surf riding, that didn't really exist at that level. So getting people to feel something so pent up that they just had to go, I hate Chad Smith, on a message board, I thought, okay, we're getting somewhere, right? Like that person, whether or not they engaged with what I was saying, they had some visceral reaction to it. And I love chasing the visceral reaction. I did. And I think it's stuck now as a thing. But half the time, whatever I'm writing, I honestly believe and just, maybe think not this just stupidly differently.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's the obvious question, isn't it? Like, how much of it is real? How much of it is because you've mentioned, any writer has a persona. Doesn't matter who they are. Doesn't matter what you're writing about. Everybody's got it. And you mentioned, Hemingway. I've heard you talk about Norman Mailer. Camus. That's a line of, I'm guessing Hunter S. Thompson might even be in there. It's a line of those kind of pretty male, reaction driven. It's a trope, isn't it? It's like, and they're all personas, those people. So I guess the obvious question is, and it's something that I often, when I read your stuff, you can tell you enjoy the wind up. You can tell you enjoy like the reaction. And I guess what's been interesting about the COVID stuff as well, and that's why I kind of said earlier, it's a perfect story for you almost because you can push. But I guess the question is like, you've answered it really, but is it all real? Is it all, how much of it is a persona and how much of it is not?
It's funny. I've been struggling with it myself lately of being so sick of, I think this maybe, I'm pretty self-isolated normally anyway. I mean, I think as a writer, like, coronavirus didn't really change my day to day, but it's made me, I guess, go on a lot more podcasts and, I don't know, maybe it was just coincidence, but I've become entirely sick of myself during this coronavirus time, like really hating Chad Smith, whatever this...
In inverted commas, Chad Smith.
Exactly. And thinking, okay, I've pushed this thing, this style, and there's times where it probably was me, there's times probably where it wasn't, I was just winding up and seeing where it went. But with this third book coming out, it's very me-centered again, just like Welcome to Paradise and Cocaine and Surfing, like it all, very me in the center of it. And I would like to come out of this saying, okay, enough. There was a trilogy of me, and Beach Grit as me. I would like to evolve into something better. I don't know what that is yet, but I'm sick of Chad Smith. I can honestly say that I hate Chad Smith at this point.
I mean, because you can tell that from your books, though, because, they're serious. They're funny, but there are points to them, like clearly. And you're obviously trying to write something that's not just, throwaway surf literature. There's, what I'm saying. So like that's kind of why I asked the question, really, because I think you can tell that. I think you can tell that with you there are bigger ambitions. Let's put it that way.
I hope that I can do something bigger and better. I've always wanted to write a great book. I don't think I've written one yet. But yeah, it's time for me to evolve, I think.
So do you know what that looks like?
No, I have no idea. It's scary. But
right.
Yeah. But I feel it's funny. So, I mean, even with this COVID time where it does seem like the perfect storm for Chad Smith,
that's inverted commas Chad Smith again, isn't it?
I became exactly. I love talking about myself in the third person. I became absolutely disgusted by Chad Smith at the same time. So it's a real bummer that I didn't get to take my moment and really run with it.
Right. So the Yemen book feels like a good conclusion.
it feels like a conclusion to this. Yeah, again, persona. There was times that I did think of it as a persona. I mean, because my name isn't even stinking Chaz, right? Like, I mean, everybody's called me Charlie my whole life. So when I first started writing, I started writing Chaz because it did feel like a persona then. Yeah. But then I think I became Chaz Smith at some point along the way. And now maybe it's time to, shed Chaz Smith. But I don't know how that looks.
It's a self-fulfilling prophecy, isn't it? Especially the role that you've created for yourself in this culture, like you say. And again, that's why I asked the question, because I have wondered sometimes. It's kind of fine if you enjoy it, but if you get the minute you get bored of that's actually quite a difficult thing to get out of, isn't it? Because everybody in this little world has an idea of what it is.
And I don't know what else to I don't to exacerbate people purposefully, and just the dance I do. I don't know that it ages well on a. I'm 44 too, and I don't know if that looks good on a 44-year-old man.
Yeah. Well, are you happy with the new book?
I don't know. It was really, 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 really hard to write. I thought it would be easy to write. It took me like a full year, which is rare for me. With multiple get through 30,000 words and throw each and every word out the window and start from scratch. I think I did that 3 times. So I struggled with it and spent more time on it than anything I've written in my life. But I don't know if it's any good.
What do you think the writers you admire would think of your work?
See, I that it's shallow and empty and vacuous. That I pull punches way too often. That I should have a point and not be satisfied or not think it's funny to be pointless. I think that's what they think.
Do you feel like it's a bit of a weird question, I guess, surf culture, surf journalism, what you would call it, does it feel a bit easy?
No, because I think that there was a time when I first wrote Welcome to Paradise, I thought, okay, I'm done with surfing at this point. I've said everything I need to say. I even wrote I'm going off to do different things for Surfing Magazine, wrote my, bid you farewell surfing, and then kind of getting out of surfing for a minute, or I didn't even get out for a second. I think we started Beach Grit straight after that. But there was a time I really wanted to leave because I thought it was just vacuous. But then I realized, wait a second though, no matter, even if you're in politics, even if you're writing, a movie or fashion, or every world is a world, right? And has good and bad. Surfing is as much a world as any of it, has as rich a culture, as rich a heritage, as rich a history.
Completely agree with that, yeah.
As any world. And so it's just a matter of doing it well or doing it poorly.
Well, another reason I asked that question is a lot of it comes down to your own ego as well, doesn't it? And what you think is good enough, if that makes sense. Because I completely agree with you. There's absolutely nothing. I mean, having a career in surf journalism, having the career that you've had is a great thing. To think of all the things that you've talked about, all the experiences that you've had, all these books you've written, everything. But often it's your own inner drive, isn't it? Which is saying to you there's probably something else I could be doing here. There's probably something, a little bit worthier, or not. I don't even mean worthier in an outside sense, as in for me to feel better about myself.
And at some point too, I just don't know really what else to say, right? Which I felt that before, and then found another 8 years. I mean, I think we started Beach Grit 7 years ago, so I've somehow found another 7 years worth of things to say. But at some point, and who knows, maybe it'll be forever. Maybe surfing will be my field forever. But if it is, I definitely need to evolve even in that. I need to get better at what I do. I think I need to, for Beach Grit, I think writing, 2 to 3 pieces a day and just grinding it out. I never have time, unless I'm writing a book, to actually pause and write well. I'm just spitting. And maybe, but, in this day and age, nobody has time to sit and pause and read good writing anymore, right? It's just bam, bam, bam. It's clickbait. It's headlines. It's funny pictures. And that works. But I don't know, maybe at the end, that'll be my epitaph. He wrote funny headlines and attached them to amusing pictures.
That's going to be a lot of people's headlines, I think. So what's your plan today? What you got on?
I want to write.
What's the routine when you're writing something weightier? Like, can you sit there and do 4 hours, or are you looking at your phone? Like, how does it work? Do you need to go to a beach shot and no internet?
No, it takes me a minute to get into it always. Like, I'll be fiddling with my phone, fiddling on Beach Grit, like going back and forth, have the Word doc up, but be glancing, and just kind of scattershot. And sometimes I can never get out of the scattershot brain. But when it works good, it's when if I can lock in, then I can stay locked in for 5, 6, 7 hours. And still nothing makes me happier than writing. I'd rather write than surf.
Really?
Yeah. I love surfing, but writing is the thing I do every single day. And whether it's good or bad or awful or vacant, it's still the thing I do every single day.
Is it the difficulty that you enjoy?
Yes.
As in, the feeling like, because it is hard, isn't it? Like,
it is.
On whatever level you're doing it, to try and make sense of that and put it down in a way that feels real and true, whatever you try to write about is difficult.
That feels real and true, and that a better way to say it, and actually getting to a deeper truth, as opposed to and keeping a narrative moving in one direction that's both entertaining but has some value to it. The whole thing. And I guess there's never a point where it becomes easy if you're trying to write well, right? Like, I could bang out. If Derek called me up this morning and said, "Oh man, we need 15 Beach Grit stories on the site in 20 minutes," I could probably do 15 Beach Grit stories in 20 minutes. But to sit and write one small paragraph well, there's something about that is, it's just endlessly difficult. And going back, even reading, I never flip open my old books, but if I have to for some reason, flipping one open and reading paragraphs and both thinking, oh, this should have been better, but also finding the ones that I chuckle at and think, that's a good one. That's a funny paragraph. But maybe moving forward, maybe I'd like to move out of paragraph to paragraph, one being good, one being bad, and get a whole damn book that's good. That would feel good.
Do you know that John Steinbeck book, the diary that he wrote when he was writing East of Eden?
No.
You should read that. It's great. So he had... I think I might have it somewhere. If you do like East of Eden diaries, he did because he wrote everything with a pencil. So he did that half he wrote a letter to his editor. That half he wrote the book. It's really great.
That's really fantastic. Okay, getting it. I need to start reading again. I think that's part of my problem. Is ever since I've started writing, I really haven't read. I didn't want my voice to sound like other writers, and it so did at the start. But so I just stopped reading more or less. So I haven't really read for 8 years. So it's time to read again.
Wow, really? That's all?
Pick stuff up here and there. But when I'm working, like the Middle East book, I read part of Theisigger's Arabian Sands, I think it's called. I read a couple just to see how people were dealing with the Middle East at that point.
Yeah.
But aside from that, no, I haven't sat down and a couple, I guess I take that back, but nothing consistent.
And that was a purposeful thing because you wanted to avoid the influence.
Initially, yeah. I didn't want to sound like the people that I was reading. I wanted to find my own voice, but then it just became sort of a habit not to read, a bad habit.
Right. So do you feel like you succeeded in that, developing that voice? I
think so. I think that, however bad it is, that I have a distinct writing style now, and construct sentences uniquely.
You're quite negative about it.
About the way I write?
About your work, yeah.
It just needs to be better. I need to hit another level here. I feel that it's cute what I do, but I don't want to be cute.
So who do you think's doing good work?
In surf?
Yeah, I guess that's the obvious reference point.
Anyone? I really love to death forever. And this is, Derek Riley, every sentence he writes, I feel is poetry. I love reading Derek, and I love Long Tom stuff. Steve Scher on Beach Grit, I think, is a phenomenally, I think, uniquely captures a surf contest and makes it literature, which to do that, I mean, is, if people have not read one of Steve Scher's contest drafts, it's even worth going and getting old ones and pulling them out. Like, it's just so well done. So in surf, I really like the way those guys write. And who else do I like? I love Warshaw when Warshaw gets on a clip. I like still, I don't know why everybody hates him so bad, but I think Matt George writes sort of a level of, if he's pretending to be narcissistic and being able to write that way, it's beautiful. And if he's truly narcissistic and writing that way, then it's even more beautiful. Like if that's real. If it's I mean, if that was real, it would be art.
Yeah, fair.
Who do you like?
I couldn't really say in surf, to be honest. Yeah, I've got to be honest. I'm not an avid consumer of surf media, really.
Yeah,
like I'm not really an avid consumer of any of the action sporty media, really, which is weird because I work in it. Like if I have to, like I edited a snowboard magazine last winter, so you know I looked at a lot of it then. And there's a few people that are good, you know, for sure.
But I don't know that anybody is avid consumers of action sports media anymore, to be honest. I mean, looking or kind of vaguely knowing what the numbers for Stab, Surfline, I mean, Beach Grit absolutely crushes all media here, which, I mean, we're, I think, twice as big as Surfline, right? Which is asinine to think that, but, you know, it's because we write about sharks and other stupid stuff that gets clicks, right? But the consumption, I think people used to identify as these things, and I just don't think they do anymore, like, by and large. So you have a very small, tiny few people reading this stuff, and that's it.
Yeah, whenever I used to pitch, I used to run a snowboard magazine for a long time, and it got to, like, a new editor came in and I pitched him a story. It's a few years ago, and he said, there's only so much we can force people to eat the greens.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, that's a complicit, isn't it? He's like, basically, not enough people are interested in your hand on chin bullshit, you know.
Yeah.
But he's right, isn't he? As you said, you know.
I think that very, very few people, I mean, the people who read or consume action sports media, you could probably put them on one small school bus.
Yeah, I've not really thought about that, but you are right, aren't you? I'm trying to think now. I'm trying to think of films as well. There's a few good filmmakers in snowboarding right now. There's a guy called Jerome Tanon who, even if you don't give a fuck about snowboarding, actually, he made a very, very good film called The Eternal Beauty of Snowboarding, which is a real great send up of the form.
Okay,
and that's really worth what. Cersei will know it. I think.
Okay. I think that the canvas of action sports is still some of the most beautiful on earth. I think there's infinite amount of beautiful surf films, snowboard films, even, you know, or skate films that could still be made. Just writing about it, I think, oops, you know,
yeah,
maybe that's just it's done. It's been said. Oops.
Yeah, maybe.
Pretty.
Hey man, well I'll let you go because we've been gassing away for over an hour, which went pretty quick. So yeah, so you're gonna write, you're gonna just spend the day writing. That's the plan.
So, and I'll go get a red tide surf today too. It's super red tide down here, but yeah, late afternoon I'll go grab one.
Nice. And so final question then, when this is, because you can't travel, you guys, at the minute, can you? So
we're not supposed to.
When it lifts, where are you gonna go?
I don't know. There's talk about it all the time, feeling this trapped down. So right now it's either, we'll probably go to either Paris, Tokyo, or Mexico. So those are the ones getting bandied about for our summer trip. Nice. Yeah.
Nice, man. Thanks, Chaz. That's great. Really enjoyed it.
Oh, I did too. Thanks for the time. And I apologize to all the listeners who have to listen to me blather on for
well, I'll point them in the direction of your other podcasts as well, if they want any more.
Don't.
So there you go. That was me and Charlie / Chaz. Not for me to say whether I get to call him Charlie yet, really. Greatly enjoyed that conversation. for his honesty, his openness, his willingness to go there, and at times his painful self-awareness. As ever, I'm looking forward to meeting him in person when this is all over. If you want to check out more from Charlie, I mean, where'd you start? Like I said, the output is incredible, really. I mean, you could try Beach Grit, obviously, if that description at the top didn't put you off. You could try his podcast. I think he's got 2 of his own. He's got Dirty Water with Derek, which is the Beach Grit one. Then he's got The Grit that he does with David Lee Scales, which is probably the one that I prefer, to be honest, because I find that David tempers some of the meaner tendencies that can come through in that whole world. But they're both very entertaining. They're worth a look if you like, if you want to find out more. But really, I'd recommend starting with his books, particularly Welcome to Paradise, Now Go to Hell, which is about his adventures on the North Shore of Hawaii, which, as he kind of acknowledged himself, is probably his most successful book. I'm very much looking forward to reading the Yemen book when it does come out. But most of all, I'm just looking forward to seeing whether Chaz finds an exit, really, and a proper outlet for his obviously huge talent and empathy, which is clearly a big part of who he is, despite the impression you might get from there's those inverted commas again, Chaz Smith output. All right, housekeeping corner. Huge response to my Terrier interview, which is already one of the most popular episodes ever, not least because I premiered it on YouTube. Thanks to everyone who kicked things off over there by subscribing. I'll be putting all my Type 2 live episodes on there over the next few weeks, and I'm continuing to experiment with the idea of releasing these things on video. I'll keep you posted on that. I mean, I've video recorded a couple, and they do look a bit shit, but then everyone else is doing it, so maybe it's time for me to just get over it and bang a few up there. Not starting with Chaz, but maybe in the future. Anyway, if you do want to subscribe, you can find me as Looking Sideways Action Sports Podcast over on YouTube, or by the link in my bio over at Instagram. But yeah, thanks to everyone who got in touch about the episode. Really glad to hear that everybody enjoyed hearing from Terry. Listening back, I did wish I'd pushed him harder on a few things, but I think I've realised that it just means I'll have to get him on again at some point. So there you go. Anyway, on the snowboard nostalgia tip, I highly recommend checking out the new Instagram account set up by my old pal and podcast guest Nick Hamilton. You can find it at TW Snowboarding, all lowercase, all one word, sorry. If you like the Read and Destroy Instagram and you want to look back at some of the most iconic photography in snowboarding, I highly recommend it. It's got off to a great start, and I think if you like this podcast, it's going to be right up your boulevard. Anyway, speaking of Type 2 Live, as I just did, I'm back this Friday with a new interview with none other than the great Hugo Taghome of Surfers Against Sewage. Love Hugo. Can't wait to catch up with him virtually. As ever, he'll be taking over the Patagonia Europe Instagram account. You can tune in either by tuning in there, or you can follow me at We Look Sideways on Instagram. And 8 p.m. this coming Friday, the 11th, I believe, which is the bank holiday. In fact, I'm going to have to look that up because I might have given you... No, it's the 8th. Good job I looked it up. Fuck knows where I got the 11th from. It's the 8th of May. It's VE Day, in fact. It's a bank holiday in the UK. 8 p.m. British Standard Summer Time. 9 p.m. GM Central European Time even. I'll be live with Hugo Taghome. You can send in questions to me over at my Instagram, but I'll be posting about that over there, letting you all know what's going on. Final plug before I go off for another week. I mean, I just want to say thanks to everyone who's bought some merchandise, really, from the shop tab on my website, www.wearelookingsideways.com. It's really very much appreciated. As everyone knows, because I harp on about it enough, I'm really keen to keep the podcast ad-free and free to air. And every merch purchase, social share, particularly of the new YouTube stuff on Facebook, I'm just going to say, and even, word of mouth plug is another step towards me being able to keep this ad-free and free to air. So thanks. All right, that's it for this week. See you next time. Nice one.